The Bycocket hat can be traced widely throughout the 14th century and beyond. Other names for this functional yet extremely stylish piece of headgear include the Robin Hood hat, pointed hat, or chapeau à bec, translated from French meaning chapel with a beak. Very close to that translation would be chapeau à bec, which would simply mean hat with a beak. For the purpose of this particular video, we're going to use the term that is most widely recognized, and that is bycocket. First thing you should know, bycockets tend to come in a varying degree of shape, size, and color, and one can find many images and iterations in illuminations, paintings, and carvings. In most scenarios, the bycocket is worn when outdoors, although I have absolutely seen them in indoor scenes as well. So who was wearing the bycocket? Pretty much everybody. Men and women both wore bycockets, but you will also see them worn by different zoomorphic creatures, dogs, and rabbits in illuminations. Most of the time, again, worn outside, sometimes inside, and then of course on some illuminations you can't determine. Check out here common crown colors, the most common being red, gray, blue, and brim colors, with the most common being red, white, or gray. The age-old debate for the bycocket is not so much of whether the crown was decorated, but if the brim was decorated. We see things that look like they could be decorations, but we're not really sure if they're actually fur being interpreted by an artist, or maybe something else. We do, however, see brims that have pearls or possibly stitching. We see pilgrim badges as decoration. We see feathers, anywhere from pheasant feathers to peacock feathers. We, of course, have some evidence of a brocaded or fabric top. Many of them come in 2 shades or 1 shade of colors, and there are a variety of different types of streamers that actually would keep the bycocket on your head in a heavy wind. So no matter how you choose to style your bycocket, remember it is a hat for all occasions. Anything from conspiring with friends, riding off into the sunset with loved ones, or yes, even committing atrocities. Your bycocket can be worn at all times. Hello and welcome to yet another Barony of the Flame class series. Today we are going to be talking about felting and shaping the Bycocket hat, a hat that I'm very, very fond of wearing. The love of bycockets actually started a long time ago, and it's come through a lot of iterations, through oddly shaped with a seam in the middle, to one of the first that I actually tried to make my own felt hood for, my own hand felted starting base, if you will. I did love this hat. To different types of wool, Shetland, for example, merino. Some that didn't work, lots of failures. And then I got to something that I was very, very happy with. I do love the bycocket. I love the shapes, I love the amazing colors that they come in, and I'm super addicted to this hat. So I'm going to be teaching you 2 different methods to make your own bycocket. One of them, that will be the easiest for most people just starting out, is to actually purchase your own wool felt hood. I referred to it as the gumdrop for a very, very long time. It's called a hood. And to make your own form. Hat forms are ridiculously expensive, and so with a little ingenuity, felt and window pane sealant, you know that stuff you put in your windows and it gets giant? Yeah, that's what's in here, okay? Alright, so real talk here. I could not afford the $200 to $400 hat forms that I had been seeing around, so I decided to make my own. To do that, I messed around with the shape of a bycocket, actually sewing those 2 pieces of fabric together and fitting them on my head, flipping up the brim, and see how they worked. I filled it with the window sealant. Make sure you only fill it up like halfway, because it will grow, expand, and become a giant monster. I then pulled that stuff off and took a hacksaw and cut off the bottom of the giant growing monster, and have a really nice functioning hat form. I've used it several times. It's the one you are seeing me use today in this video. For more directions on how to create your form, you can head to my blog at halftoldtale.weebly.com Click on blog. You will go to the post from 9/30/2013 called Hilarity and Attempted Millinery. You will come to a page of thumbnails, which you can click. They will expand, and they will actually give you better play-by-play directions.
This is the one that we're going to be using today. And this is the green wool hood that I'm going to be using today. This will be part 1 in a 2-part series on felted Bycockets. In the next series, I will show you how to start from using wool, just like so. So how you get from this to this. So stay tuned for that. But today I'm going to show everybody a very simplistic way to achieve nice medieval headwear. All right, so after you have created your form, which again, I will post on my blog here at the bottom so that you will be able to go there and get your directions. It takes about 2 days for it to dry and for it to be ready. So when that is done, and when you have ordered your commercial hood, which I have to say I order on eBay, they're about $11. There's a place in Sweden that has them shipped very, very quickly, and they're very, very nice, all 100% wool product. So here is how simplistic this is. You need to be near a source of water. Needs to be hot water. Try to get the water the hottest you can possibly stand, and you're going to go ahead and drench your hood in it. You will notice that the hoods are not even in any way, shape, or form, but through your manipulations on the form, as well as using scissors and how you treat it at the end, it will be nice and uniform. All right, super hot water. You want to make sure to drench the inside of your wool hood as well as the outside, because they're actually very, very water fast. And if you just put water on the outsides, your insides are not going to be moist like they need to be. So you will feel a difference in the wool itself. It does become more malleable. The shaping is the most difficult part of what we're going to do here today. So you'll notice that the top of this hood is very, very wide, and it's not fitting to the thinness of the shape. You're going to want to start from the top, and you're going to want to smooth this down. And you're going to have to get pretty close and intense and use the power of those hands in order to smooth this down onto the entire shape. I would never work this shape going from the bottom up, because you will see that it kind of ruins and breaks your wool. You may have to pull and stretch at the bottom. Don't pull too much, or else the brim of your hat won't be as it should. One thing I'll be working on is I have found a very, very large Bycocket with an extremely pronounced hood that I'll be making next, but I do need to make a new form for it. It's totally okay if you get wool coming off on your hands. So you shape and you shape until you are where you want to be. Make sure everything is very smooth. Make sure everything is conformed. And then you will want to look and make sure that you are as close on the edges as possible for making sure that your brim is going to look nice. Now, here's the simplistic thing about a Bycocket and maybe why they were so prevalent. Anybody with this felt hood could make a Bycocket pretty daggone simply. The next thing I'm going to do is locate the front of my hat. I'm going to start turning up the brim. Now, what you need to find out at this point is I have a 23.5 inch head, so I usually make a 24 inch Bycocket. For me, I know exactly where that mark is right here, just because I've made them several times. What you will want to do is you will find the diameter of your head at about 1 inch, and then find out where that happens to sit on your hat, okay, on the actual crown of the hat. Then you will be able to find out about how far you want to flip up your brim. I like for my Bycocket to fit a little bit tight. And what I'm going to start doing is tightening up the brim on the form. I'm going to bring everything forward and down. I'm going to pull out the point, especially if you want something that's a little bit more exaggerated. And take your time with this. If you find that the hat is becoming too cool, you can very, very simply toss it back into hot water. Sometimes I kind of like to even shock the fibers by going to hot water and then very, very quickly cold water. When you get to a point where you're satisfied, you will notice that there's the possibility that you've got very, very wavy edges on your brim. So I like to go to the tools that I have most near, in this case, a butter knife. And what I do is I will start smoothing those edges. Don't use anything really sharp because I am pressing quite hard here. So I am just smoothing those edges. I will cut some of the edges as well, but I want to make sure they're as smooth as possible so I can eyeball what we're working with. There we go. Also, it is totally fine if you want to use pins in order to pin your hat down and make it more stable, but do not leave those pins in there overnight, for instance, because they will rust and they will leave the rust residue right on your felt, which is less than attractive. Right, just smoothing that point a little bit more. I want to be really satisfied with where the point is and how it looks. Next, you will need scissors because we're going to trim up our brims. All right, at this step, what I am going to do is I am going to start taking some measurements. Use any sort of measuring device that you have, but I am going to just look on opposite sides of each other and make sure that we've got similarity all the way around. Okay, very good, very good. And now here kind of comes the interesting part that people always get terrified about. I am going to take the hat directly off the form. I'm going to flip it to where it is laid out again. And if you are fabric covering your hat, this is what I do for that. Get a scrap piece of fabric, lay that bad boy out, lay your hood out, and trace around it. Use chalk, use marker, use whatever you have. This will become the pattern for this particular hat if you are putting a layer of fabric on it. Is there a historic precedent for it? Yes, I'll show you the picture right now. There is a hat a little later 14th century that looks like it's actually topped with a brocaded fabric, which is lovely and interesting. Now, the nice thing is this already has some memory in it. So you'll be able to flip this bad boy right back up. It'll go right along the crease where you flipped it, and then you can reshape that brim. Not saying it's the right way, just saying it's the way I do it. I'm going to go around with that butter knife, straighten everything back out again. I want my edges to be nice and clean. This particular hat is for somebody that has a larger head. It's about 24.5 inches. Ladies, if you have braids, for instance, that you tuck under, you will want to make yours larger. If you're going to measure around your hairstyle so you can make sure that it fits. Make sure you look straight down, looking for inconsistencies, looking for areas where you may not have a smooth result. If you find that you feel like your wool is coming apart or getting piecey, what I recommend is that you throw it right back in the hot water with some dish soap and you actually start to agitate it and make sure those fibers are adhering really well together. Wools have barbs, if you will. If you look at them under a microscope, they're barbed together, so they really do agitate and felt very well, although some of them agitate better than others. I'll give you a rundown of those on the video. All right, so I have got a shape that I am happy with currently. Let me show you on the camera. Here's my shape. The next part is to let it dry. What I do is about every couple of hours while it's drying is I will come over and I will lightly tighten up the brim by just pressing on it in a kind of forward motion, making sure everything is nice and as it should be. Again, you can put pins in this, but they will rust if you leave them in really for any long period of time. So, some people use felt stiffeners. Here's a popular one called Call Hat Stiffener. I've seen people use hairspray. I've seen people use diluted Elmer's glue. Generally, if you are working with a felt hood that is already as well made as this one is, and like I said, $11 on eBay, then you really won't have an issue. And if you ever do, you can simply put it back in water, agitate it, reshape it, which is the really cool thing about wool. You can reshape these hats. So I think it made it very, very practical for people living in the Middle Ages. Very, very practical that they could shape a hat again. That being said, if you look for hats and where they're at, for instance, in illuminations where there are businesses or guilds, they usually have their hats hanging up on a wall, never sitting them down. It probably kept them a lot nicer and wouldn't have to be reshaped so often because it eventually will lose some of its shape. So at this point, after this is dry, you have your pattern that you're going to use in order to make the fabric topper. I am going to link a series of pictures of how to put that fabric topper on. And when you are done, feel free to embellish your hat as you see fit. Feathers are very, very popular. I've seen Byzants, I have seen pilgrim's badges. Whatever your particular poison happens to be, go for it. I think it's a wonderful hat. I love them so much. They're my favorite accessory as far as the 14th century goes. Next up in this series is going to be how you can, as authentically as possible, produce your own hood. For that, we're going to be using merino wool that looks like this. It's a super, super soft wool. You can mix the colors very, very simply, like as you see here. This is the first iteration of this hat. I'll show you a better one in just a second. But it's very, very cool because I was able to get that two-tone out of it, which seems to be very, very popular within the 14th century. And what's really cool is it has stayed magnificently well. I didn't know if a hat that was felted from the ground up could achieve the look and stability that I was looking for, but I put it on a kid and let him run around for a few days. Wore it myself a few times just to kind of test things out, and it holds up very, very well. So, looking forward to teaching you this style very soon.
For more information on covering the felt hat with a material top or bottom, check out halftoldtale.weebly.com. You will be taken to the blog where you will find this following post called Return of the Bycocket. It'll give you step-by-step direction and thumbnails with photos of how to cover your hat. Thank you!